Honorable Kaba, Honorable Diale.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Honorable Chair. Greetings, members. My name is Betty Diale, member of the committee.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deelpan Disaster, member of the Provincial Legislature. Thank you.
Afternoon, Chair, Premier, and everyone present. Freddy Sonakile, member of the committee.
Support staff. We have me Moyagabo rena le re le tlogela ka bo le tlogela rena le re Nikotele Dimu rena le me Namhlaluhabe na le re Baleseng Salomani na le Sego Mokai re Moseki me Busi ha ke itse gore sefane ke se tlaila maloba se matjwaka bele yana rena le boagi ba rona re ba fileng observer status from ko Deelpan jaanong re tlanela ka tlhamalalo go mo primary wa Bokone Bophirima we introduce it. Oh,
Ra leboga modulasetulo le maloko a committee ka tlotlo e ba tshwanetseng maloko a portfolio committee ya legislature na ke ka o bitsa Maape ke Premier ke tsamaya le DG Mogotle ke tsamaya le DG Mawelela ke tsamaya le official Koloti re na le acting HOD wa ku Kokta o ntse le teng mo meeting le lona ra leboga
nyara leboga re lebogetse thata gore me wa rona o go godimo ka maemo ke motlotlegi me ke o biditse lenkopane me ke bo me ba go godimo ba ba tsenelang di kopano tse di go godimo hela tsa di premier mo go tse dingwe tse a batle ba tlela mo go tse di go godimo kana yeah so a re go nele premier o re kgwedi kgaba kgang ya rona e mabapi le tiego le tshalelo morago mo ditshepišong tse di sale di dirilwe ko boaging ba rona jwa ko Deelpan Lombardslaagte Brooksby Witban le dikgaolo tse di amilweng ke matlhotlhapelo a dikgogola jaanong re ntse re le mo tseleng re kopane le boagi ka la bobedi ba re netse dintlha kgolo tse ba naganang gore puso ga se fitlhelele mo go tsone le gore go na le ngodiego le gore ba fitlhelele ba setse ba tseegile maikutlo mme ba tswetse ditsela ke gore ba lekile ka makgetlo a mantsi go ngoka puso gore e boele ko go bone go na le tshalelo morago kgokagano ya puso e eteletsweng pele ke lefapha la rona la dipuso selegae e na le ngodiego gongwe ga e yo gotlhelele seo se dirang gore ba ikitlhelele ba aparetswe ke mathata ba le mo gone matlo a santse a le mo metsing matlo a kana tseneletswe ke metsi mme metsi a tswile mo dijareteng but boalo bo santse bo le metsi foundation se se tlisang matlhoko a tshwanang le arthritis le bo TB ka tselentseng jalo mafapha go tsenyeletsa di masepala tse pedi tsa ngaka Modiremlema le Tswaing go na le ditshepišo tse ba di dirileng ko Deelpan jaaka motse mme ga ba diragatsa ditshepišo tseo ga ba diragatsa ditshepišo tseo jaanong mafapha a re seteng re kopane le one go fitlhela ga jaana lefapha la rona la DART le DDECT re tswa mo legato le re ntseng re na le COGTA Public Works le Social Development jaanong ne re utlwe mo ngwame gore jaaka tautona mo provinceng Kgosi Tutubolo le la Matlakala re ne ra rona re kgwe dikgaba gore tiego e kana e tsalwa keng a madi gayo ga madi a seo goreng ba gaetsho ba ile ko Deelpan ba dira ditshepišo mme mo bega kganyeng go na le di-commitment yang ka di bitsa ka tselentseng yalo tse puso e retseng batho ba rona ko Deelpan gore re tla tloga re boa e segale nang le letile mme a go sa nna jalo Premier puso e ikaelela leng go boela ko Deelpan e tswe e naya ba gaetsho ko Deelpan pegelo go efoga dipheretlego tse dintsi di le gone go efoga go emela gape morwalla o mongwe o tla tlogang o nnang teng ka gore setse re le mo setlheng sa dipula o e batla ka Sekgowa okay all right Premier
ke a leboga ke itwa ke gore ke na le meeting o mongwe wa ko Sun City kwa ba launcher expansion ya resort ba nkopile ka tswetswe gore ke nne teng go tloga mo mošong ke ba kopile gore a nkitla ke kgona go nna teng go tloga mo mošong ke tla nna teng la teng go tla tshwanela gore ke kope maitshwarelo e re ha nako pele ga ya kgakala ke be ke le mo tseleng gore ke kgone go nna le bone ka ha ba batla go bua ka di-expansion tse go attracta tourists le go create di mmereko ha ba re kopa gore re nne teng ha re sa nne teng ka re ga re ba tsetsia ka go dilo tse rotlhe re dumalana gore tshwantse di diriwe ke re yana ke a kopa ka boikokobetso gore ke letlelele gore ke tle ke tšhemoge ha ke boela mo kganyeng ya Deelpan ke kgang e botlhoko e diregileng ya gore metsi a tsenelele dipane re setse re buile thata ka dipane tse le gore dipane ke mo e leng gore ga go tlhokege gore ke tle ke bue ka background ya gore pane ke felo fa metsi e kgaelelang teng ka molao ya ga gona ope o tshwantseng age mo paneng so ka nako ya di-force removal le batho bane ba beiwa gongwe le gongwe ba ba beiwa mo teng ga pane yana ba sena go beiwa mo teng ga pane go bo go nna le luba le le tseneletse mo dingwageng tse di fetileng go bonagala e ka re ba beilwe mo dipolekeng tse di siameng e rile mo ngwageng tse di hitileng ga nna le merwalela dipane tsa boela ya nna dipane matlo a le mo dipaneng ga nna le gore matlo a eme mo metsing ke shone selo seno se dira gore di-floods tsa rona di seka tsa tshwana le tsa KZN tsa KZN metsi a na heta a tsa matlo a diga rona metsi a na a dikaganyeditse matlo a di eme hautsi e seng for beke e seng for kgwedi for dikgwedi a go ntse jalo ke gore la batho ba tswa gona sepe se o ka se dirang ao ko ntleng ga gore o ntshe batho ene le selo se se botlhoko se fetile a ke batle go boela ko history eo gore re setse re dirileng go nna thata mo go nna gore ke bue ka gore re dirile report rona re tshotse di-report tsotlhe tsa di-department re ka re biditswe ke portfolio committee ra go ba bolelela gore department ya agriculture e dirang, ya economic development e dirang, ya public works e dirang, ele e dirang. Yaanong ba setse ba buile go tla nna ka ekare yaanong ra boeletsa ka rona ga re department e le dirang di-services jalo rona ra ba coordinator fela ga gona service direct e re tla e dirang ko so rona e rile re utlwa gote gona le merolele ra forma committee ene le eteletswe pele ke MEC yo responsible for disasters and ke ena tshwantseng a report ka disasters di-department tse dingwe di reporta mo go ene ka molao ena le sa report on behalf of all these other departments e rile ha go nna le gore jaanong go nna le dingongorego gore ka re ga gona progress ra forma committee engwe re e bitsa oversight e ne sa tshwerwe ke MEC ene tshwerwa ke nna e kopana every Monday go kry-a di-reporto ka Deelpan every Monday ra kopana go kry-a di-reporto ka Deelpan yaanong aka ke setse ke buile dilo tse dintsi go na le tleliniki kwa social development e bula ke batla go bua ka dilo tseo ke di bueletse ke rata go focusa mo dilong tse ka reng di tsaya nako and ke di tsaya nako dilo tse dingwe tse e leng gore di tsaya nako kgang ya ntlha e leng a very serious problem which we must address is that there's a group of people that prevents government officials from getting access to that settlement. We don't want to securitize problems, but we were compelled to call in the police to come and assist, particularly when they started then setting on fire government property. We had to invite the police to come in. But that inhibited the officials from coming in and doing whatever they could do there. For a long time, the officials could not gain access. What we have observed, and we can't say this to them because we'll appear as if we're insensitive, is that whilst we are addressing the damage that was caused by the floods, there are a small group in the community that is raising issues related to development, but issues that have nothing to do with the damage caused by the floods. For instance, when they say they want a sports field, there was no sports field there before. There was no sports field that was damaged by the floods. For instance, when they say they want more lights, it's not that the lights were damaged by the floods. So there are people who are making demands there, demands which have nothing. And these people are bent on using violence and threats to ensure that the government gives in to their demands. But there are issues where we admit that they are slow and we need more progress. Cardinal amongst them, very cardinal, is the issue of resettlement. It's an issue of construction of housing. It's a problem because of several factors. The first factor being that there are some community members who say they don't want to move, others say they want to move. That's one key problem. Another problem is that those that have, with their own resources, constructed houses, and I'm sure members of the committee, they discussed this once when we were there, who have built for themselves through their own efforts and resources houses with 3 bedrooms. Say they don't want a 2-bedroom house as a house they should be relocated to. They want a house similar in size to the houses they built for themselves through their own efforts and means. And so it's something that will require some policy change. How do we do this? Do we compensate them in terms of the houses they are currently occupying? So this is the second factor that is bedeviling the process of relocation. The third factor is the selection of the land. It's a process. the land must be made available by the tribal authority, and at the moment there's not yet clear land. Land that was made available was land intended for temporary resident units. And in our meeting last week Monday, or this past Monday, was it on Monday? It was postponed, it was on another day. We debated the issue as to whether we still need temporary resident units. Because temporary resident units are intended for residents who cannot return to their homes. We felt that instead of building temporary resident units, we should rather focus on permanent housing units. And so that's the issue of land is issue that will take time to be resolved. But as soon as it is resolved, and we have decided to appoint a social facilitator to interact with the situation there, to interact with the stakeholders there, to ensure that whatever we do will be informed by the needs of the community, the preference of the community, because it's really a difficult situation. So the social facilitator will be there, will identify land. We have already said the processes of appointing people who will do geotech studies and all that should commence as soon as we agree on the land for permanent construction of buildings. So the issue of housing is slow. I was looking last week at TV, and it was indicating what progress is made in KZN. And because the problem is the same, they are also struggling with the problem. In fact, they are moving people from one temporary accommodation to another temporary accommodation, and people were complaining and say, when are you going to start with housing construction? It's not something that we can do very quickly, it's something that will take time, we admit that. But we are focused on that. Like I said, we meet every Monday to get progress reports from the various departments. The other issue is the issue of roads. Now, as you know, the yellow fleet there was destroyed when people set the equipment there alight, but the department is coming back, getting in there to look at the roads. Then some members of the community had requested for speed humps. And last week, when the Department of Public Works dispatched its workers there to go and construct the speed humps, they were chased away by some group. They were chased away, so they could not work on the speed humps. The roads internally, as soon as we have asked the police, because POP is there, can they accompany Public Works as Public Works go in there to go and repair the roads? We also thought hard about this situation, and it's a complex situation. It's not a simple situation. Are there things that we can do in this community that will also contribute to changing the socio-economic status of people there? For instance, can we do things there that can create jobs, even if they are not going to be very, very permanent? So we had a discussion, conversation with Public Works. So Public Works is looking at its budget. It has completed its scoping in terms of Lombardslaagte. Like I said, it's difficult to get access to Deelpan. They want to do their scoping in Deelpan and say, how many people can we employ? Can we look at things like paving and those internal streets? Can we pave them? I must say that what we are doing, we are setting a difficult precedent, because villages of that size, they are all over the province, and they do not have paved streets, because that's not in terms of the norms and standards, but because of the pressures put by that community, because they don't want us to address only the damage that was caused by the floods, but they want us to take them out of the shackles of poverty there. And as government, we must do something, but unfortunately, there are not resources that were set aside for that purpose. but we have to see how Public Works can reprioritize so that we do that paving. We agreed with Public Works that in the next meeting they'll provide a report for scoping in terms of the roads in Deelpan. The other issue that was a burning issue was the issue of water. The issue of water has been addressed. They were saying water in Lombardslucht has got high salt content, and the matter has been addressed. So we address issues as they arise. But in terms of the other work that is done by DDECT, I'm sure you got the report. How many people have been given money to do this? Social development, I'm sure you got the reports. But I just wanted to highlight, and I'm sure Public Works did report about the roads and so on. And so we just want to say we as the Premier's office are coordinating because that is our key function. That is why we are holding these Monday meetings to ensure that departments report. We are thinking, Chairperson, as you correctly point out, that we must go there. We want to go there. We've been speaking to the police. They'll tell us when it is safe to go there. But at the moment, there's a small group that is quite vociferous and that is employing violent means to try and promote their interests and objectives. And we hope that the police will be in a position to deal with that situation. But that's briefly what I would say, Chairperson, in response. I had anticipated that we will come here with all the departments because this is a disaster. It's managed by the Department of COCTA, disaster. Other departments are supporting it. Just as we dealt with COVID, Health had to do something, but the Department of COCTA was the one reporting even nationally about COVID. I thought the approach would be that one, but like I said, I don't want to repeat what other departments have said about work already done there. I will stop here, Chairperson, and again say that I request humbly so that I be allowed to proceed to Sun City at 3 o'clock. Thank you very much. I don't know, DG, is there anything to add?
Is there anything extraordinary, honorable members, out of the short brief of the Premier? Sorry. Okay. Is there anything honorable members would want to engage on the briefing of the Premier?
Are you giving the platform? You are not Yeah, I can take the platform because the Premier is running away at 3 o'clock. So let me just chip in for. Let me just chip in. Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to quote only some few words from the Premier, like the Premier's office is working as coordinating the work of the different departments. And then our problem from the interaction with those departments that you're talking of, we have generally seen that why there's a delay, why there's a community protest, why there's so many problems, there is no coordination. Even the department that we're doing presentation here, you know, Premier, it was so disheartening. If the government department, they come and present here, they talk different stories about one subject. This department say we go left and turn right. This one will say we turn left, we go right. While they are talking about one place, Deelpan. So it shows that there's no coordination. So we'll just not like to know what are you coordinating in those departments. And then I will ask this thing also of the social facilitation, because you are not the first person to talk of social facilitation. I think the Coxter also talk about it. It might be a very good idea, social facilitator, but I just want to know what difference is that social facilitator going to bring in this scenario, in this situation of Deelpan. Because you see, all the department when they come here, is directors, is chief directors, is HODs. These people who are well educated, who knows and have experience, the technical know how to deal with government works. If they cannot do the job of in only one department, I don't think when you say social facilitator, every department is going to have one. I think it will be only one person. But I want to know, amongst all those departments that are there, including the municipalities, they cannot get someone with the skills to do that thing of the social facilitator, whereupon we have to wait now for the social facilitator to be appointed. I don't say don't appoint him. I just want to know what difference is he going to bring. If you look upon, since the disaster was there and still now, how long is he going to take that social? Are you sure that the social facilitator after appointing, is he going to bring in differences? Really, the report that you say we receive from the department, I wish, I don't know how are you going to get them. But the issue from the Premier's office, or DG, yeah, I think you must take those reports of those departments. Just go through them. It's either they duplicate, the municipality, they will say this supplied water. Then when you go to public works also, they say they supplied water. So we don't know who was doing what, and then the committee say there's no water. But there's money spent there, a lot of money, that we cannot even account to that. A lot of figures, high figures of money that has been used there, but there's not even a background of what is actually happening there. I think you will assist on that. Let me just stop here so that we can, throat locust cannot beat you, Premier. Thank you. Honorable Nkopane will be the chair. You can take over. I give you the platform.
No, thanks, my chair. I think the submission by the Premier to us as public representatives does not actually respond to what the public would want to hear. More so that we understand that we are dealing with a very special case of disaster. When the President pronounced that or declared that the situation in that area is of a state of disaster, it was actually calling for government that is led by the Premier. An ordinary citizen, an ordinary member of public that we represent, when that member sees a Premier, that member sees a solution to whatever problem at that time in terms of the conditions. When they were in their houses that were full of water, immediately when they see the Premier, they don't see coordination of a department, they don't see the technicalities that the Premier is bringing forth, but they see a solution to their problem. Whilst we acknowledge the fact that the communities might always be tempted to bring other things which were not part of the scope, but we are interested as public representatives on progress made, because the moment the President declared it to be a disaster, it then says there was a project that was to be managed and broken into activities. And the activities in this case means the department bringing houses where there was a need for such. In fact, reference be made to all the commitments by departments. How do you commit an activity to a project whilst you understand very well that the project is not feasible, it is then saying to the public, they are actually under a government that does not take them serious. Because it would have always been a fact that we don't make a commitment as government because you know it will not happen. What if some of these things were actually a commitment as a result of life being put in danger and somebody will die? Because most of the activities related to disaster will lead to that. Without necessarily getting into what the community might be placing, which was never part of the commitments. We are expecting the Premier, especially taking a breath from what he is saying to the committee, that his department's role is to monitor and see progress. Actually, he was supposed also to manage this project and to be at the forefront of looking into meeting the deadlines for every commitment of every department, having to get it from this department as to when you say you bring houses, when are you going to start and when are you completing? When you say you bring houses, have you conducted all the necessary tests or whatever that will need you to bring houses? In an event, those things were not done. How did you arrive to committing that you are bringing houses? If you are bringing roads, so where we are today, we're not actually saying introduce playgrounds but we are saying the disaster stage was actually debated in the legislature. We were made to debate it as a committee after having received a report from government. Remember, when we debate in the House, we are actually saying to the public, this is a contract that government is bringing to you. These are the things that are going to happen. And the committee is saying today, those things did not happen. Why have they not happened and when are they going to happen? And what are the reasons that has actually contributed for them not having happened? And we are always crying, Chair, God, this thing here, departments bringing projects that are not feasible. Departments pronouncing on something that they know they will not be capable of. That's why the Chair is saying, why have you made a commitment on something that you know there's no money for? Why have you made the President lie to the public? Why have you actually allowed yourself as the Premier to actually mislead the public? Because you said to the members of the community in that area that so and so this thing is coming. And Runa, as people who are appropriating the monies, we have also stood up in Parliament and said, this amount is going to be expended on this community. Now, we're actually calling for closure, Chair. So the Premier must tell us that the state of disaster as declared by the Premier, the President, I have actually, because the Premier is the President on the spot. The President pronounces and the Premier has to ensure that this government, through his department with different activities coming from the department, is actually happening. If these things are not happening, it then says this government is failing. And if this government is failing, the Premier must convince us to convince the public that the government is not failing. Without necessarily bringing all these other activities of people looking for things that were never there. Let's talk about those that were there. And those that were never there, we have actually collected enough data. We can always analyze them and talk something else and talk to this department in their next presentation of their future plans. And we will then be able, through public participation, to can pronounce it to say, but the public is expecting something that was never there. But the issue here is, how do we bring closure to the commitments that were actually called to respond to the state of disaster in that area? And where we are, The public, unfortunately, we are their voice because the public cannot say it. They will always demonstrate through what they are doing, which is actually a threat to what the government has already registered as part of progress in terms of service delivery. But the fair part of getting what is due to them is to close the pronouncements that were made by government, which is led by the Premier. And we are expecting the Premier to tell us why are they actually misleading the public. Thanks.
Honorable Diale, Honorable Sonakil.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Nkopane has covered a number of issues that I wanted to raise, but I must also register my concern regarding the progress that has been made by government. In fact, there's no progress at all, considering the briefing that we have been having for the whole week from the various departments, municipality, and indeed with the Premier today. We are getting a sense that nothing has been done. The community of Deelpan are still where they were immediately upon the disastrous activity that happened against them. Now, Premier, maybe if you can assist us, because clearly what we hear is provision of food parcels, little boots to fail. There's clearly nothing that we see that the government has done for our people. Perhaps maybe if you can indicate to us the main issue that we hear, it's being discussed and it has been discussed at length so far, but we don't see any progress. It's the securing of alternative land, perhaps, for the communities to be relocated. Now, it's a matter of concern because thus far, 6 months down the line, there's still not even a possibility of community identifying the land, the particular land where they will actually be relocated to. What makes me wonder if that is actually in progress is the discussion regarding the intended paving that is to be done in the current land where the communities are staying, where the disaster struck. Now, one wonders if government intends really getting paving or internal roads paved where the disaster struck, or is government planning to have those roads in the new land? It tells me that actually there's no intention at all from the government from assisting or to assist our communities. Clearly, you can't be talking about those two issues in the same sentence. Then it means our communities are just being lied to. Can we get the sense, can we get the honest truth as to what the intention of the government is with regard to helping our people and helping our people duly and faithfully? Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. Chair, you know, the moment the Premier's office did not submit any report to the committee, I knew that we had a problem. I saw departments coming to the committee and presenting what they presented. And I hear the Premier is talking about Coxstar being the main department that coordinates, which is true in terms of law, in terms of disasters. However, the Office of the Premier has a monitoring role. And one would have expected that we put you last for a reason, to say that all these departments are going to come. You say every Monday you meet with these departments, they give you reports. Obviously, on your role of monitoring, you could have picked up that there's a problem somewhere. One would have thought that you're going to give the committee a report that says, I picked up the following red flags, and as the number one of the province where the buck must stop, this is how we are fixing all this. This meeting has turned into being a very social chat with you, Premier. I really think that you wasted your time and our time. And listening to you, you don't instill confidence, and I try by all means to give you the benefit of the doubt, but you keep falling into the trap. You know, the moment you also mentioned to say that You are having an expansion of a resort meeting. This meeting should just go quickly. I knew that there you went south again. Because we are dealing with a disaster here. People are displaced. People are living with their neighbors. Then the Premier of the province comes and says, in terms of my priorities, I shouldn't be here. I should be somewhere addressing people who are high, according to your priority list, who are very high there on the list, that I should be there discussing jobs. It's all good and well that we need jobs. It's all good and well, but how will we maintain jobs if we can't deal with a disaster? All the members here who have spoken are speaking about promises that have been made under your watch. But you give us a report that is like a complaint session, Premier. To say, no, the community is fighting, here we are looking at this here. There's no sense of a monitoring report that comes from the #1 of the province, and it's embarrassing. When Deelpan disaster happened, it started sometime in December. It was not that big. It came up until March when it blew off. KwaZulu-Natal, around the same time it happened. The ad hoc committee went to KwaZulu-Natal in August to check progress. There were boxes that they could tick, yes, 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 yes. We are sitting here 7 months down the line. There's nothing that we can say yes to. But the Premier comes and gives us a verbal report that just says that, no, some people are wrong, there are other things that I should have done. I'm embarrassed in you, Premier. Really, this is embarrassing, Honorable Motswana. And I knew that the fact that we don't have a report, that is going to, remember, we've said to social development, give us a register to say these are the beneficiaries. COGTA, give us a plan that says that here's the land. If you are saying temporary, when are you going for permanent? We went into detail. A Premier must come and give us a monitoring report that says that in terms of coordination, I've realized the following problems and mistakes, and this is how I've intervened. We did not get that. And the committee could sense that coordination is a problem. You have departments and municipalities reporting on similar things that they have delivered. But even if 2 entities have said that they've delivered, the people who are supposed to be at the output side of it did not get that. But we are not getting a sense of direction from the Premier. Public participation was a problem. We are expecting the Premier to say, out of the meetings that we have had, I'm going back here then to Deelpan. I went to Deelpan on this date, the following dates. I said to them the last time I was there, and this is where we are. This was your state of the Deelpan address went wrong. This was your chance, Premier, to say, because I can't come to you physically, let me use this committee to address you and say, stop fighting, we are coming. You did not use that opportunity, Premier. Instead, you made it worse. There's inconsistent reporting. The ad hoc committee in June received a report with promises. None of that is achieved, Premier. Up until today, from the 29th of June report of the ad hoc. The report to the deputy ministers, which spoke something different to the one in the ad hoc committee. The report when the presidency guys were here. The report that they are giving us today, they don't speak to each other. But the Premier is here, and he's so busy to an extent that he's not going to waste his time here. He has to attend to some other things. He has no time to make reports on this because he's dealing with people who do not listen and whatever and whatever. I'm really embarrassed, Honorable Motswana, I'm not going to lie. Then Premier says that we are starting a debate on a need for, whether there is still a need for TRUs and all that. Obviously, there's no longer a need, Premier. It's 7 months down the line. These TRUs were supposed to be temporary residence units that were to be used immediately after an emergency. We are now supposed to be getting a report that says, because this has been a problem, the public has raised it, my government has failed in terms of departments to deliver this on time. We are at the stage of saying treasury, because this is a conditional grant that was supposed to deal with a temporary. Are there any processes that we can introduce to convert this into a permanent? Because this is the way that we need now. COGTA has raised a lot of impediments to this happening. And you as the head of the province, you're still bringing it also as a matter of discussion that is still on your table. Really, Honorable Motswana, this meeting for me, this last part, I normally hear that we save the best for last, but this was the completely opposite of that. It was a complaint session with the Premier who's in a hurry. And let me use this opportunity maybe to say, out of this, your government has failed. And I'm putting it on record, I give up on you. I give up on your government. Residents, you are on your own.
Now let me perhaps, Premier, indicate that whereas we acknowledge that you did not present a report, but it shows that our tactic to bring the Office of the Premier on a standalone, not incorporated with department, it is because we wanted to solidify our suspicion that there's no coordination. Just between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock, the department has reported that they have received land from the Khosi. They have appointed 4 companies. They are busy with processes to start construction. We had requested to them to go back and attach timelines. So it then means for that which has been reported earlier on by the Department of COGTA has not been translated to the Office of the Premier, and the department allows the Premier to come here, not briefed. The only briefing that the Premier got that is consistent with what has been said is the briefing from Public Works. The rest of the other departments, the Premier is not briefed. If you then see how then we have coordinated these meetings, initially the Premier was to appear with COGTA and Social Development, because then we wanted then to just get a gist of these 2 coordinating departments. But immediately after we realized that there is a disjuncture in terms of how the coordination is being done and why there's protest, we don't justify, we don't agree that there should be protest, we don't agree with people taking law unto themselves, and we agree that where there's acts of criminality, there should be processes of the law that should take place. We agree that where there's wrong, there's supposed to be corrections and consequence management played. But it then appears that whilst there's meetings, but there's no uniformity, and that's why from January, because the rain started in December, in January it started to escalate. In February, March, we're in a full-scale flooding area then at that time. So, emanating from those meetings to now, even reports that we have read that we are alluding to, still talk to questions of reprioritization and appointments and this and this and that. I was interested when you were talking to issues of community unrest that are taking place. How is government not able to identify and immunize from that small community of Deelpan, a community to a large extent that we went to Tuesday, and previously the week before or 2 weeks before, our researchers went into an area that we are told that is volatile, but they were able to get out reports from that area. We were able to get into the area of Deelpan and talk to the people there. Come out, and today we are still saying to them, they must come and observe our meeting. Why is it that government is unable to open hands and invite those that are willing to listen to come the area there, so as to government is able to work with the people of Deelpan, to the extent that government wants now to procure the services of a facilitator. Whereas I'm saying to the communities of Deelpan, and I've been saying since Tuesday, collapse yourselves, those that are willing to listen, into a steering committee that is not exceeding 10 people, so that we are able to disseminate correct information that comes from government. We're even pointing a blame to them, and we did not hide it, we said it to them in the meeting that no, you are complaining, but you yourself are not coordinated, because there's people amongst you that wants to take advantage of the situation. I've just said it now here, that even for this proper processes of arson, burning of buildings and so on, it is done by community members who in the main wants to rejuvenate processes there of procurement and so on, because there's going to be rebuilding of those and renovations of those properties that have been burned. Now, the very same community would want to fight that they should be afforded an opportunity to build that which they have burned. Now I say, let's utilize the community access to the Deelpan area, and not find ourselves having to be escorted by police into the area, because once we do that, we create an impression that they are hostile, we are hostile, we are enemies and they are enemies, and so on and so on. But in a nutshell, I had expected the Premier also to, as much as you conclude Premier, whereas attracting a very harsh statements from our good selves, but the Premier then to indicate using this particular platform that as the government, we intend by end of this October, by the 15th of October, by the 20th of October or so, to go back to these communities and address them. Having consolidated all of these particular reports, there's progress registered in terms of Lombardslaagte and other areas that falls under Ward 25 of Mafikeng local municipality. I so believe, until proven otherwise, that we can still work with the community of Deelpan. Yes, of course, there's anger directed towards arrest of people and so on and so on, but we have said to the communities, no, the law then must then take place. But at the same time, let's engage in a parallel process. You have this situation that you are referring to, pains that have been injected to the community through the police, through all of these forms of being assaulted and so on and so on. But at the same time, we are sitting with a situation where people are still residing in waterlogged houses. Which one do we choose? Do we choose to then wait for the pain to come to an end, or do we begin a process of relocating people where possible? The chiefs are on record to say we've allocated land. They even state the date in which the MEC went there. They've shown them the land. The land is here now. The pictures of the land in Mema Morena's report. Meaning that what we are left with is processes which we said they must go back and take us into timelines, into processes now of designs and so on. Because then when companies have been appointed, what then becomes of their scope? Specs that were supposed to have been done, because those particular specs would have been dictated to and determined by the allocation of that particular piece of land. This one is going to do services. Out of 4 companies, this one will do services and whatsoever. If then they've been appointed for temporary structures, can we create a platform and engage the communities in that a show house of a temporary structure, take them through the processes and say to the communities, not all of you are going to qualify for relocations and so on. We don't have records, Premier, as per your reports, of people whose furnitures have been damaged and so on and so on. An expectation has been created by these haphazard messages that are going to them. Ngaka Modiri Mulema goes there, says something, social development comes in, says something, trying local municipality says something, and so on and so on. So the community of Deelpan, this is the 3rd day now I'm saying this, they have taken advantage of what they see, the lack of coordination. Then they occupied that particular space, and everyone wants to take for himself or herself, because there's a vacuum left by government as a result of not being coordinated properly. From the onset, back then in January, February, you have a municipality called Swaying that has failed to create a coordinating structure, which is a normal process that if a municipality, an incident of that nature happens, a permanent coordinating structure is set up there, controlled by that particular municipality and so on. You would have then the district that is assisting that municipality and then province and so forth. So that has not been there and so on. And now, what then mushroomed is people who in the main today were told on Tuesday and even yesterday that tenders were given haphazardly. Verbal tenders were given just haphazardly. A person would just then say, no, ukanawa khudiraya na utla patalo. What becomes part of the protest there is that we're told that certain people were told verbally that they must render services. The district municipality does not want to pay them currently, and they make it a process of protest and so on. I agree to a great extent that people would then tend to say certain things, but we must be firm as government and indicate that that which is not flood related or disaster related, it must then be reserved for processes, due processes of a municipality which is trying Ward 1, having then dealt with the issue of your IDPs and so on and so on. And that which is disaster must be separated and immunized, and it must reflect and represent disaster, finish and clear. Other than that, then the community must then tell us what is it that they want us to do. But then, in aligning myself with the disappointment by members, Honorable Premier, is that you are going to leave this meeting having not given us hope as to when can we, whether there's houses, whether there's roads, whether there's water, whether there's, but we need to go back to the community and take them through the process to then say, we came here, we committed, we had made errors on this particular part and so on, but to date, we can register this particular process and we don't anticipate that will then take long. When can we start relocating people? Those that are qualifying to be relocated, because at the end of the day, if the community complains to the ad hoc committee that there are still elderly people who are residing in waterlogged houses, the very same community has to accept that those people need to be removed there for purposes of their health and be relocated. Now the question of the show house, whether they reject the temporary shelter, also show us that particular show house, how does it look like? Let's test the view of the communities and so on. But how far is the Department of Human Settlement in terms of procuring its own internal budget, in terms of now having to service the land that the Deelpan Tribal Authority has given to human settlement for purposes of houses, the geotech study, EIA, the township establishment or township register, and proclamations, as they would have said. These are but things that we want to hear governments talking about and so on. Just through the processes of the meeting, Honorable Premier, part of what we are here for is that yesterday we were told by Ngakamudiri Mulema that they have built shanties at Deelpan, but because we are from Deelpan and we have conducted inspections there, we have sent our researchers there, and there are no shanties at Deelpan. I quickly called Date Linksy, who's the manager, or the researchers, to then say, dispatch our researcher quickly ka drone. I le gore batlela this shanties tse di ko Deelpan, because we've got a tip-off. That's those shanties are actually in Mafikeng. And here are those shanties, quickly, just in an hour. So the researcher has gone there quickly there, and whilst they're taking photos and so on and so on, and sent through the photos. These are shanties that are supposed to be apparently. Yeah, it's a competent service provider. This particular shanties. So, no, not a competent service provider. It's a district municipality. Remember, district municipality it dispenses the shanties for relocation of people temporarily go Deelpan. But we are from Deelpan, and even the community could testify that I the shanties. But we are dealing with a government that wants to mislead people, even those that are residing in Deelpan. And once receiving a tip of that, no, but and they were not meant for Deelpan. They were actually designed for something else. And now they want to apportion that particular expenditure of these shanties to Deelpan. But I'm doing this not necessarily to brag with this information, but just to showcase that when we are dealing with a serious matter of disaster, people want to mislead us because they are given a platform by government to intervene and want to take advantage. And it's instances such as this that would drive us to then say, people are in contempt of Parliament because the European Parliament under the provisions of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities Act, and everything that you say here is on oath, failure of which attempting to mislead this ad hoc committee and this particular Parliament should be regarded as contempt and treated as such. And such then is that we must then speedily move into open cases with the law enforcement, because this expenditure, which is rumored to be 7 million, that is sitting somewhere here in Maape, and it is alleged that it is in Deelpan. It then means that it's a wasteful, fruitless expenditure that has occurred. And we want to use the suffering of our people to apportion this expenditure somewhere else. I'm going to rest it here and allow the Premier to just probably close off, and then we can then rest, because today, then, tomorrow, we expect that we'll have a consolidation of the reports. There's an indication that we need to further engage with COSATMA and Department of Health and Education. And our researchers still needs to go back to the areas of Deelpan, and it appears that we are going to have to now accelerate the pace at which we've been interacting with the issues, because if we can find evidence that there's been an attempt to mislead us and even go on public in a public radio, UFM, Mafikeng FM, Motsweding, contradict and denounce the stature and the standing of this ad hoc committee and the portfolio committee and the standing committee on public accounts of Honorable Dleso, to say we are fabricating reports as the mayor of Ditsobo, Mungaka Mudiri Mulema, has indicated, then we then somehow needs to find a way of dealing with that, because I've implored on the MEC to intervene in that particular regard, because the report that was presented, Premier, on the 30th of June in Deelpan by Mema Morena Lehuku, in your presence, and the MEC of Social Development and the MEC for Kokta, it was not authored by us. The issue of the 7.9 million by the district on mattresses, blankets and sanitary packs and rain boots. We're taking it from that report of the 30th of June, before the ad hoc committee. If the mayor goes to the radio and denounce our stature there, it's something else. Because when you appear before the ad hoc committee, you are not just appearing on a particular platform. You are under oath, as much as you are under oath here. So it's as if we are playing games against each other, cheap politics, Mickey Mouse politics, for tit for tat. When we are saying, the reports that we are reading from today, remember Rena is sitting there, she's been doing these reports earlier on, before you came in, Premier. We can't but quote her from the reports that she has done, not on our personal capacity and our personal view. So somehow we are not being taken serious. And it is very painful that if then Parliament is not being taken serious, then we must then fear for our people on the ground. Re ke a o bitsa.
Thank you, Chair.
Allow Premier. The rest of the issues
Can
that
I-
the
can I
Premier
say
wants
just-
to
Can I
respond to
say,
in writing,
just,
o tla di dira yalo.
from the outset that, maybe we made a mistake by not submitting a written report. And we should apologize for that, and maybe DG in the future, we have to take that as a rule, a standing rule that when we come here, we must submit a written report. Can I just say that about coordination, I'm clear in my mind there's a committee that is meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't give the minutes of the committee or the action list. And so the committee meets regularly and the work is coordinated. If coordination is not perceived, maybe we have to jack it up. But meeting every Monday, listening to every department indicating what they are doing, and identifying blockages, problems, and resolve. We can't report about those nuts and bolts here and say, so-and-so said this, and we said this, and we said that. But we try in that meeting to identify blockages and impediments, and we try to see how we can deal with them. So that meeting meets, and it's doing coordination and monitoring. So there's no way where a department cannot report. They report, but departments, when they go there, we don't go with them. We can't all say, let's go there at the same time. That is called coordination. In my small world, that is not coordination. Each department will go in there individually. If they make progress against the milestone set, they'll make progress and they'll report in the next meeting. We can't even micromanage them and say, whenever you reach a small milestone, report to us. We'll wait for the Monday meeting and they'll come and they'll report. So we apologize for not submitting a report, but we are doing coordination and monitoring, and at the moment we think it is working. We also think that if we were in a different setting, we would ask the question. The fact that there's a new clinic there, does it really agree with the assertion that there's nothing that has been done there? The fact that there's a clinic there, the fact that there are culverts there, does it accord with there's nothing that has been done there? So we regard this as hyperbole, and hyperbole is all right sometimes, in speech, to say there's nothing that has been done. We do acknowledge that there are difficulties, there are problems, and we do think that when people coined words like VUCA, when they talk about complex situation, they were right. That is a complex situation. I did indicate that in KwaZulu-Natal, they have not started with housing construction, and that disaster befell them before the disaster that befell the people of Deelpan. And it's not that because they are lazy or they are stupid or they are reluctant or they are unwilling. That is a complex process. So the Department of Human Settlement has made progress, so it reported. So we are happy. We'll hear about that progress when we meet on Monday. But we can't know a priori, what they've been doing in the past week before we meet at the Monday meeting. The other issue I want to relate to Chairperson is we are quite sympathetic to the situation of the people of Deelpan. And we want to do something about it. That is why we go even beyond what we should be doing in terms of disaster prescriptions. We are responding to their other socio-economic needs. That is why we are developing these strategies. These strategies are not plucked from a tree. You have to conceptualize them. You have to identify there's no money that we're getting anywhere to do these things. We have to reprioritize within our existing budgets. And it's not an easy process because there are difficult trade-offs that you must consider that now we are no more going to do this because of Deelpan. And so we are quite sympathetic. We had tried to arrange a meeting with key stakeholders in Deelpan. The meeting could not take place in Deelpan. We even took the meeting to Sunnysoft, just to illustrate to you how we take this situation seriously. Some people we belong to, the youth, had agreed to be part of that meeting. They reneged at the last minute. We can't force them. We can't really force them. But they were supposed to be part of the meeting. They did not turn up. We met with those that we met. And those that we met are not really saying same thing that we hear. They are saying they have hope. They are saying they want to cooperate with us. And that, amongst the people we met, was the traditional leader, Khosi. Khosi Taylor, progress. So we are happy that we are interacting with him. There's a need really to conceptualize this issue of social facilitation. What is social facilitation? Why do we need it? When you deal with human behavior, when you deal with competing interests, it's not easy for you as government to say, we listen to this, because sometimes these competing interests are conflicting. They are conflicting. The others say we want this, the others say we want something different to this. So you need somebody who is trained. No civil servant can say, because I did my PhD in public administration, it's automatic that I understand social facilitation. People go to school to go and be trained as social facilitators. We want these people to help us because we really want to resolve problems there. Problems there are enormous, are complex, are really complex. And because we take those people seriously, we want to engage the services of a social facilitator. And we are quite advanced. Initially, we did not do it. We thought on our own we could do some mediation. We could do some coaxing. We could do some nudging here and there. But we see that we are not competent enough. We are not qualified to do such things. And so we are going to engage the services of a competent person to help us resolve those issues. As it comes, I just said to the people there that I'm here, again, competing demands on my time. So I won't say to them, it was said that you are more important, that's why I'm going to you. I won't say that to them. But I'll just say to them, they are competing times for my attention. And so I have to say to you, Chairperson, in terms of the district, we are different spheres of government. We have the responsibility to monitor local government. But you as the committee, you are more empowered to go there and scrutinize whatever you think requires intense scrutiny, more than ourselves. And so we think that if you raise difficulties that you have with the district, we can only be empowered when we have something like prima facie evidence that there's a wrong going on there. But without that, but you as the committee, if the district you believe is doing something that is out of kilter with the law, it is your responsibility to then call them and say, respond. We can't. There are certain things that we can do. There are certain things that we can't do. And so I'm not saying I agree that they have done wrong or they are giving wrong information. But I wanted really to be on the 2 points, coordination, and that we have done nothing. There is coordination there. It may not be at the level that other people desire. There is hope there. We speak to the people there, the adults, mainly adults, and they tell us they have hope and they understand the complexity of the situation. With these few words, Comrade Chair, all the comments that have been made, we'll take them into account when we meet next time and try to improve our reaction time and progress in terms of other things that we have to do. The issue of housing is a complex one. We will try to speed up the process. We hear that there are houses that are still waterlogged. When we said that people should not leave places of safety, some insisted and said, we want to go back to their homes. And sometimes it's difficult to yield to demands of communities and to regard that not to be something that is in their benefit, but we have to do what they request us to do. If they say we want to go back to our houses and we say, no, you are better off in this place of safety, and they say, they insist, they want to go back to their houses, there's very little we can do to prevent that from happening. But we listened to the points made, we'll take them into account when we meet on Monday, and we hope that there'll be clear progress. In fact, I think I agree with the chairperson, we should visit the place, and maybe it will be a good thing to visit the place with the committee. Maybe it will be a good thing. We also do not like to securitize socio-economic problems, to call in the police. But when your life is in danger, there's no other alternative. When threats are made, there's no other alternative. You have to call in the police. But we hope that in the future it will be possible for us to be accompanied by the committee to go there. And it will be, sometimes when we are involved in something, you do not see other issues. Maybe the committee will bring the other issues to our attention, and then we'll address them. But I don't know, Chairperson, whether you give me permission to go to this other important, which is also a government responsibility, which is also my responsibility. I don't know whether you grant me permission to go to that meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, just 1 minute to Honorable Nkopane, and then we would then just summarize after the Premier has left with the support staff as to what is expected of tomorrow.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair. I think I must agree with Honorable Kaba that from the beginning we could have actually said, because there's no report, then will not be able to engage. Because the understanding of engagement of the legislature and departments, including the Premier, is on the basis of looking into the progress in terms of, because we're actually looking at performance with specific reference to disaster. Now, in simple terms, without even wanting to get paragraphs and pages, Honorable Chair, let's have this presentation where the Premier outlines a number of these activities from departments: housing, agriculture, social development, these specific activities, so that the Monday meeting must not be a meeting of minutes, must be a meeting that translates into service delivery to the people of Deelpan in terms of the expected performance. That's what we will want to measure. That's what the impact. When we go with the committee there, we shouldn't go to a meeting. We should then take that list and say, now to a clinic, now to a bridge, now to a road, now to those houses that were supported, now to this, so that we are able to close the chapter of disaster without necessarily talking about minutes and reports. I think we need to design such, so that when we come next time, we talk progress and we talk services to the people, and we are in October. What if in November we experience the same rains? That is where now we are going to be put to a test of saying, what we did previously, was it actually responding to the conditions that were identified there as the threats or a relief from disaster? Guard these communities, or are we going again to have a stock yadi gambusi? So now I'm saying, let's design a tool that will force the monitoring part and the coordination part of the Premier to translate into service delivery and to start to understand the minimization of this technical response more than service delivery and impact and a convincing response to the public. Kora public rep o sa utlur gate. Kora expected Premier go ra re batho ba o ba lla hela re ba getse clinic re ba getse sela re ba neile di bridge re ba dirile so re ba kore just explaining a series of activities that happened there. We will then take them and have a closer look to it in terms of the expenditure re bua ka value for money now. Tse dingwe tse dintsi re be re di tlogela leadership. Thank you.
Okay, mongwamere tsena mo tseleng o ba re ratla ka re tla leng kwa Mantaga re ratla Mantaga ratla Mantaga Premier ko Sun City. Brapol? Brapol? Are di rempakan? How di rempakan? No. Support staff, I think, sorry. We had requested that I think we'd meet committee room 2 tomorrow because there's a speakers forum here. We should be able to consolidate our report that side. As we stand now, we won't be able to conclude this matter. There's a need to call the Department of Health for further scrutiny. There's a reference made to the learners that has been assisted, but the Department of Education is not brought into the fold. So we don't want surprises. There's a reference made by the community of people that have been alleged to have been assaulted, some killed, and so on. The number goes to about 4 to 6 of suspicions of people who have been killed in that particular area. So we'd bring COSATMA, because if then the head of the government respond in this way, the head of the government says they don't have intelligence unit in the province, and disown, because if the head of the government who is able to call the mayor of the district to a meeting called Premier's Coordinating Council, or why TVS until on? We got delay. This one? No, not on this closing. Yeah, not on the closing, so that tomorrow.